few people know, I mean, honestly, few people know more about college basketball on the planet than our friend, Mr. Jimmy Patsos, former assistant coach at the University of Maryland, won a national championship, former head coach at Loyola and Siena. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Am I on here? What's going on? How are we doing?
We good, brother. What's happening with
Finlay.
you?
I figured you'd be out in Indianapolis.
He on his way.
5 o'clock, Dulles.
BMItch.
What's up, brother?
Let's start here. Jimmy, were you at that Duke-Michigan game Saturday night? That was a pretty epic ball game.
Epic. I saw Michigan play earlier this year. I did not see Duke. I was at Maryland beating Washington 64-60. They got a stop and a dunk. There was about 60 former players there. Buck Williams was there. Walt Williams, Joe Smith. Johnny Rhodes, Tom McMillan, Len Elmore, that crew.
Awesome.
They had a thing. Dave Neal really led the charge. Dave Neal, who's from O'Connell, and played it. Him and Matt Rado kind of got this basketball coalition going. It was good, and so we all got together afterwards. I watched the whole second half. I love having the game in D.C. I love those kind of mid-February games. We played Oklahoma and Billy Tubbs once in Baltimore. We played Kelvin Sampson. We played Cincinnati. And Bob Huggins and Danny Foots. We used to play that one out-of-conference game kind of in like January, February. I think it gives you a little different look. Duke, Michigan, in Washington, D.C. Boy, Ted Leonsis and family, they did a great job getting that game there because that was as good as it got.
Dude, so the one thing I couldn't help but notice watching that game, did you watch any of it, B?
Nah, I didn't get a chance to watch that one.
The amount of corporate logos on the floor. They had 3 logos, different logos on both baselines, multiple logos on the court. Edward Jones presented it. The Edward Jones logo was as big as a bus. Jimmy, how does the money work in those situations? Does a promoter kind of rent out the arena and then both teams have to be paid? Because that looked like, I mean, the place was packed. The crowd was electric. Somebody made some money on Saturday night.
Yeah, the guy from Virginia named Russ Potts used to do a lot of these. That's how we got to play Georgetown in the USA Arena on Thanksgiving back then, the first time we had beat them. Lots of different people do them. I'm involved with like the Hall of Fame, and they do all theirs early. So I don't know who's doing this one late. I just know it was a really good game to have. But I'm also doing lots of other stuff. Look, JP, I'm as happy for Dwayne Simpkins, who's in third place. They have to, get a home game in the Patriot, and they win and they're in. Kenny Blakeney and Howard, by the way, both the Mountain guys, and I'm a Carolinian, so it's hard for me to like them. I'm just kidding, but I'm so Howard's on a roll. They're on a roll. GW won a couple of really big games. They beat George Mason and Tony Skinn. They lost Suffolk at VCU. They beat Rhode Island, and then they have LaSalle Tuesday. Well, these guys are all setting up for their conference tournaments, and they all have to win them to go, but they're in good shape. The Hoyers he's struggling over there. Ed's he can't quite turn it all around. Good guy. I had them, they went to the Crown last year. I thought they were going to make the jump to the NCAA this year, and then up here I got Towson was scary. Mount St. Mary's can win it. In other words, if anybody's listening, I do the bigs. I'm very grateful, and Maryland's struggling, but we have unbelievable mid-majors. Mason could go, GW could go, Dwayne could go, Kenny could go. They could all go and win their tournaments this next 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I want to talk about all the smaller schools and then eventually Maryland and Georgetown. But we could start right there in the Patriot League. Brian and I were out in Annapolis Thursday night, and we were talking.
Oh man, they won like 11 in a row, I think.
Yeah, dude. So Navy, both the men and the women at Navy have clinched the Patriot League. So which means they're the 1 seed in that tournament. AU
they host in that league.
Yeah, AU right now I think is the 4 seed. Do you think Navy wins that? I imagine they're like a prohibitive favorite. Could AU sneak into the tournament by winning that conference tournament?
Yes, I mean, look, they beat them last year. I was at that game. AU won at home. John Perry's he got the job. Ed DeChellis was there. Giles was his assistant. Good to see him get it. Navy's physical, but Loyola's making a run up here too in that league too. But having the home court advantage. I'll tell you who's on fire is UMBC. They've won 6 out of 7. They're in first place in the American East. That's the conference at Vermont. John Becker, Catholic U, grads the coach at Vermont. In other words, Navy's definitely the most physical, definitely has the line. I think they've won 11 in a row. But UMBC's on fire, too. But having a home court all the way through is good. They also don't play every day. UMBC, the Patriot League, and American East will have a day in between each game.
Okay.
Wow.
The A10, they're going to play 3 games in 3 days in Pittsburgh. You know, the CAA, they're going to play 3 games in 3 days over at the sports arena over in where the Wizards and the Mystics play.
What's the thinking behind that, though?
Because they travel, because they're home games.
Oh, okay.
Right? Isn't that why?
They're home games, BMItch. So what they do is they get the crowd there, they get the home. It's actually cool. I don't like having the final in a home court advantage. Like last year, Navy had no chance. American U was packed. Dwayne did a great job. They had Matt Rogers, the center, and all these players. And you weren't going to win. The judge, Bob Matty, shout out to Bob Matty, R.I.P., just passed away. This guy was a legendary DC figure. Was at that game with me, and everyone around here knows him who recruits. He did like scouting service. Great guy. Anyways, we were sitting there, and you walk in, American U's packed. The students are there. They're drinking beers in the end zone. Dave Beerworth does a good job. You have no chance almost to win that away game. However, I do like that system, B-Mitch. Host all the way up, but the finals, maybe the men and women should be like a doubleheader in a neutral site. But I don't make these decisions, so some have neutral, some don't. The Terps, they make their tournament. Not everyone makes their tournament anymore, JP. Like Mount St. Mary's has to make theirs. The MAC, only 10 or 13 make it. But, you know, the Terps, if Darius Adams and those guys can get on, I'll tell you, he's playing well. The kid Andre Mills is from Boston, the lefty. He looks like an NBA player all of a sudden. Really good. I got a picture of him and Johnny Rhodes this weekend together, both left-handed guards.
So, hold on. I want to get to Maryland.
Andre Mills could. Someone has to make a run in that league, and if they do, it's going to knock other teams out. That's why the Michigan Duke thing was that's like a Final Four preview. That was a whole different level, you know.
All right, I want to make sure I mention Howard before we get stuck on a million questions I'm going to have about Maryland. Howard 8-3 in conference. They're in first place. Is that a neutral site tournament or is that a home game? Like, what are Howard's chances to win that thing?
Very good. They go to Norfolk. Kenny Blakeney plays a tough out-of-conference schedule. He's got a thing where he's had Notre Dame and Mike Bray come. He had Missouri come this year. But he played Yale 2 weeks ago, and Yale beat him in overtime. Yale's the top.
I wanted to go to that game, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know. It was on a Monday.
It was a Monday after the Super Bowl, so I had to work.
That's a wash. I mean, come on, it's a holiday. Anyways, Kenny Blakeney is a really good guy. I just saw him at. Unfortunately, Bill Courtney, another legendary figure who was a George Mason kid on the staff, passed away. So we're getting to that age where we're going to funerals and all we do is see basketball people. But Bill Courtney, great guy. I turn around and there's Kenny Blakeney and I sit there and then we start talking like we always do about basketball and games and this. And he played Yale really tough. Morgan State's won. Norfolk State's kind of run that league. And for those of you listening, this is just what I do, so I'm used to all these teams. But Kenny Blakeney's done a great job. I think Kenny Blakeney and Howard has been one of the great stories the last 5 years. I hope he gets a chance to go to the next level. I don't want him to leave Howard. I'm not saying that, but he could. He should get a chance at the A10, in my opinion. He's done a really fantastic job.
How hard will it be for Howard to win? Because aren't those games in Norfolk? Isn't that conference tournament in Norfolk?
It is in Norfolk. There's 3 games in 3 days. I don't think Coppin's eligible. That league's only 8 teams now because Florida A&M and Hampton and A&T left. So it's 3 games in 3 days, but if he gets the number 1 seed, I think he gets a bye because there's only 2. I think Coppin's not eligible this year. 2 games in 2 days is better than 3 games in 3 days. But yes, it is down in Norfolk, and Norfolk State's very good. I saw them play this year against Townsend. So it'll be the Wild West. It's going to be a great 2 weeks. The Hoyas, I don't think have a chance. I'm going out on a limb. St. John's wins the national title. I got Rick Pitino and St. John's cutting down the net.
St. John's?
Wow, the Johnnies.
That's my dog. Look, this is my outside field. This is who I think is the favorite. They've won. They haven't lost on the road at the Big East this year. They're quietly amassing this great season. They got deeper than you think. And hey, when Pitino said curfew 5 a.m., that was my team for the year. That was it. I love that. So I got them. The Hoyas, I don't know if they can do it. That's in the guard. But the Maryland Terrapins will be interesting. Both have them playing harder. They've won 3 or 4. They go to Nebraska, who's vulnerable as the number 9 seed right now in the country. And we'll see what happens. But they're good enough to make some noise right now in the tournament. They won't get a bid unless they make a run in the tournament because they've had a tough year. But hang in there with Buzz. He's always done better in his second year at Virginia Tech and at Texas A&M and stuff. It's been a tough year, injuries. You got to have some players. And Gary Williams and I were sitting together, and I don't speak for Gary Williams ever, but I do love him and respect what he says. Joe Smith and Keith Booth were outstanding, but Johnny Rhodes, Dwayne Simpkins, and X-Ray Hep went through a lot the year before when we lost. And Gary's point was if these guys, Mills and Adams and everyone can stay, you get Payne back, then you add, Bob and another big-time recruit from the portal. Then all of a sudden we go to 2 Sweet 16s. These guys have been through a lot, but they've learned on the fly. Buzz is learning the job. You add in Bob, who's a great player. He's a really good freshman. And then you have to have older guys. It's the portal now. It's older. And a portal guy, and you can turn it around. Because he was talking about our 93, 94. That's when we played the Hoyas. Because Joe Smith, Wayne Bristol, Mario Lucas, Johnny Rhodes, everybody was there this weekend. We were talking about how you have to get through that bad year, BMItch, but still keep the guys that learned from the bad year, and then add the new guys in.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel good with Buzz. We're good with Buzz. This is obvious. The only loss that is they are playing a lot better. I hated the loss at Rutgers. I
was sitting in the second row, so you didn't hate it as much as I did. We couldn't score. They had their alumni day, their Final Four team undefeated. They honored all these guys. The basketball gods were not with them in the second half. We couldn't score. We just couldn't score, and sometimes that happens. Look, I didn't say it's perfect over there. It's going in the look. You have to go through the growing pains, and this is Maryland's different than. Like I said, that's his track record. He's won in Marquette, he's won in Virginia Tech, and he's won in Texas A&M, and it usually takes him a little while to get it going. I mean, different system.
Totally different system now.
Different system. They're not going to Bentleys and closing them up like we did. So that's okay. It's a different world. But they just adjust to him and the players. The players are playing hard for him. And if the players play hard, you got a chance. If the players aren't competing and buying in, his team is connected and they play hard and all that. They just have struggled to shoot the ball this year.
Yeah,
Payne got hurt. But the Mills kid's gotten better. He's a pro. I think it's an NBA player. Now you got to keep what you got. That's my point.